Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Eric Roevers. I am the head of solution architecture for Eris, and I am joined today by Michael Rasmussen. And I don't think he needs an introduction, but for those of you who have been living under a rock, Michael obviously is a globally recognized pundit on governance, risk and compliance, and performance. I would like to add, with over 28 years of experience, helping firms across the globe in improving their GRC processes. And he is sometimes known by friends and enemies as the father of GRC. So welcome, Michael, to the show today.
Oh, it is a pleasure to be here with you, Eric.
Amazing. So we have a lot of ground to cover today. We obviously going to speak about Operation Resilience, and maybe for the people in the audience, what we're trying to do today is to debunk a couple of myths around Operation Resilience. And I would say let's jump right into it. So let's start with a first a myth or maybe a misconception that we sometimes see in the market. Obviously, DORA, the European legislation around Operation Resilience, is kicking is going truly into effect in January 25. So we have 2 months left. And it is sometimes seen by some people as like a watershed moment. This is where you need to be compliant. So all of the work that is being done right now is to ensure that the banks and financial services are compliant with DORA at that date. And then essentially project is done. It's it's over. It's we celebrate and we have closure and we move on to different things. Do you see this in the market? Do you see organizations actually treating the DORA deadline as a or the DORA compliance as a once of exercise, or is Operation Resilience seen more as an ongoing concern or even something different? What is your view on this?
Well, there's definitely a deadline. So there's a project leading up to DORA. And for some that continues beyond that because our organization is going to be ready for DORA come January. Most not. And in that case, there's other things they still have to address and things. But DORA requires constant care and attention and Operation Resilience does. The world is dynamic. Regulations are changing and DORA is going to evolve, particularly when enforcement starts coming around and how that's applied. But the risk environment's changing and geopolitical risks and economic risks and uncertainty and cyber risks and threats out there. But the business itself is changing. Technology changes, processes change, third-party relationships change, and third-party relationships are a big part of DORA. As well as UK Operation Resilience and Australia CPS 230 and all the other ones on Operation Resilience. But DORA isn't like a project that ends, it's ongoing. But the organizations that are going to approach Operation Resilience correctly are the ones that aren't going to just see this as a compliance exercise, a tick box exercise. They're not going to be the ones that just see this as an ongoing concern. To me, the best organizations are going to embrace resilience as a way for the business to thrive and thrive under uncertainty better than competitors do. So organizations need to move beyond viewing operational resilience, particularly DORA, as we're looking at that in the immediate future, but beyond that as well, that they need to go beyond seeing this as a project that has an end date that oversimplifies its essence. While there are regulatory deadlines like in January for DORA, those compliance mandates do drive urgency. Resilience itself is fundamentally a continuous discipline that evolves with the business. As the business changes, as the processes change, employees and technology and third-party relationships and services change, we have to keep everything current to be resilient. Because if we approach DORA as a project, and then 5 years from now we have an issue, our business has changed and DORA is out of date. All of our process and documentation. Firms that treat something like DORA or whatever operation resilience regulation you're facing as a one-time goal, as a project end date, are going to find regulatory failures because, DORA itself emphasizes continuous testing, governance, and oversight. A one-off approach leaves significant gaps there. They're going to also find that the business is fragile and not resilient because there's unexpected disruptions that can expose weaknesses if resilience is not maintained and nurtured and integrated in the business as usual processes. And to me, fundamentally, they're going to miss the strategic value. Operation resilience isn't just about avoiding penalties and being compliant. It's an enabler of customer trust, market confidence, and competitive advantage. That's what true operational resilience delivers, and it's part of operational risk management. So some trends and implementations is that you do have short-term thinkers, as you point out, Eric. Many smaller firms and less mature organizations approach DORA as that project to avoid regulatory penalties without embedding resilience into the business itself. It's the business processes and business change and into the business culture. But those are the short-term thinkers. On the flip side, you have proactive leaders. Or those are the organizations that leverage DORA and operational resilience in general, whether it's regulated or not, as an opportunity for long-term operational improvement. And these type of organizations are developing strategic frameworks that integrate resilience into decision-making processes and investments. So my recommendations, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, is to, on the path forward for resilience, is to embed resilience into the business strategy and architecture. You need to build resilience principles into the governance, the operational processes and architecture of the business, as well as the organizational culture. Another element is the continuous improvement, where we need to establish metrics for resilience performance and conduct ongoing monitoring and testing. And then, of course, we need to invest in technology. We need to use advanced tools, like ERIS, for scenario modeling, continuous monitoring, and helping the organization make decision-making as they face risks. Yeah. Those are some of my thoughts on that.
No, well, unfortunately for the audience, I must fully agree with you. I think that the January 17th date is obviously a milestone, because as of that moment, you need to be able to demonstrate compliance, and how how firms will be able to demonstrate that, and if they will be able to demonstrate that to the satisfaction of regulatory authorities, is yet to be seen. I think it's a start of a learning experience, and I think that a lot of organizations have set up a program. I think for some firms, it was the first time that they had this level of cross-functional collaboration that is necessary for resilience. In a sense, it's breaking down a couple of silos or multiple silos in the organization, or bridging those silos. But I think, come January, a lot of firms will start to work on how do we build this into the operating model, other than just as a program that we slap on top, or rather as a fundamental part of how we do business and how we operate the business. So I think a lot of learning has yet to begin, I think, in this space. So and that sort of takes me to the next level, because I mentioned that obviously the regulators are going to have their examinations for DORA come January, or in some of the weeks and months after that. And I know for a fact that they are going to want to see, how do you actually operate this business? How do you show me how you prevent disruption? Show me how you respond to disruption. Now, I've worked with and in several financial institutions, and I know the differences in quality level of the documentation of ways of working and processes. But you see many more out there. So do you think that the level of quality and the level of granularity today of how banks and financial institutions map out their documentation, their process documentation, is that granularity and quality level sufficient for what is needed for operational resilience today?
I don't think so. I mean, a lot of organizations will think, well, we have business continuity plans, and operational resilience is just BCP. Operational resilience is more than business continuity. To me, business continuity is going away. It's going to, and not just in financial services like with DORA, but across industries. business continuity, I mean, it's not binary. It's not like flipping off a light switch that business continuity goes away. But over the next 5 years, you're going to see business continuity in that term become less and less relevant as operational resilience becomes more and more relevant. And there's a lot of things we can take from business continuity and the plans and testing and scenarios. But the reality is that this is that operational resilience requires a lot more, as you referenced, quality of process documentation. But it also requires alignment with operational risk. The U.S. OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, in their guidance on operational resilience, it's not regulation like DORA, but guidance, not your regulation yet. But it says that operational resilience is an effective outcome of operational risk management. Risk and resilience belong together. I'm working with a global, hospitality firm that has branded their risk department risk and assurance, but they're rebranding it, and considering branding to risk and resilience because they find that adding that word resilience, the business buys into it. Risk is a scary word. What business owner wants to own risk? That they pass it around like a hot potato. But what business owner doesn't want to be resilient? They all want to be resilient. And bringing risk and resilience together just makes sense. And I have a whole paper called Risk and Resilience Management by Design and workshop I teach on that as well, on bringing these together. Business continuity plans are necessary, but to me, they're insufficient for today's, business, as well as the regulatory landscape like DORA. Regulators really are, and like with DORA, and I say regulators, but it goes beyond that because this is just good business to do this. It requires and demands process mapping, where you have clear documentation of critical business services and the processes supporting them. You have clearly defined impact tolerances, a term that was introduced with the UK operational resilience guidance, where we have defined thresholds for disruptions and evidence of adherence to these tolerances during stress tests or stress events. And then understanding and mapping interdependencies, because there's upstream and downstream dependencies across business services, vendors, technology systems, and so forth. All this means that we need clear and very high quality process documentation. And to me, any good GRC platform or risk platform is going to have good process modeling in it to be able to deliver value to the business. Unfortunately, a lot of the current state, there's fragmented documentation where process documentation often resides in scattered silos and lacks end-to-end visibility and connectivity of all these interdependencies. And this suffers with stale data where static business continuity plans fail to account for the dynamic changes in technology, in business systems and processes, and third-party relationships, and the risks themselves. And then, of course, you have quality issues that drive around regulatory risks. Without comprehensive and up-to-date process mapping, firms may fail audits or stress tests. So some actionable recommendations on my side is good process mining and mapping. You need to use advanced tools to extract real-time insights from systems logs to map and analyze processes. We need automation where we invest in automated tools to continuously update and validate process documentation, and have strong scenario testing where we can regularly test processes to validate documentation, identify gaps. So to me, as I've stated, resilience is beyond continuity. It's part of operational risk management, as the US OCC states. Operational resilience is the effective outcome of operational risk management. Resilience requires understanding the operational risk impacts beyond IT or physical disruptions, such as regulatory changes, geopolitical risks, third-party failures, and more. And another aspect is that there's a need for granularity and quality, as we've been discussing. Firms must ensure that they have good documentation that captures operational nuances and interdependencies, such as customer impact and recovery prioritization, to move beyond superficial continuity planning. Hopefully I didn't step on anybody. I'm sure there's some BCP people out there.
No, this is the entire point here is to step on toes. That's the point. We want to step on toes because I think that that operational resilience is forcing, more than any other concern over the last couple of years, is forcing firms to reassess how the various different silos need to collaborate. If I look at the landscape in a typical bank or insurance company, there's obviously the IT and the IT security team. there is typically an ORM team, which in many cases is also responsible for regulatory change. And then there's the business operations, who generally own the ways of working.
And then you have the vendor supplier area too, and all the third parties.
Exactly. And all of those are connected to the third party landscape as well, and the governance across them typically lacks the agility you need in order to respond to evolving threats, but also evolving business, evolving IT landscapes. So this is where I think a lot of firms need to do some introspection and look at, are we following up quickly enough as we reassess our risk levels? And we need to factor that into how we do business. So how does it affect our business as usual? But also, how does it affect our procedures that need to kick in if we do experience a disruption? If this sits with all kinds of different teams that all have their own planning cycles, their own review cycles, their own governance, being able to respond quickly to a changing environment is just going to be very, very difficult. So it's either not going to happen or it's going to be very expensive. So on the one hand, I think that we established that in order to become resilient as an outcome of having strong operational risk capability in the organization, the other aspect of it is, are the process teams ready enough? So we talked about risk and how they need to be ready for this, but on the other side, there's the process capability as well. How are they set up currently to support an OREM function which is primed to make sure that the organization is resilient and that services are continuous?
Yeah, I think we need to clearly understand the importance of our processes and our services and how they are delivered in the organization. This is absolutely critical and fundamental to operational resilience. We need to move beyond an over-reliance on IT security and infrastructure that ignores the vital role of business processes ensuring service continuity. This is more than just hackers, viruses, and worms, oh my. There's a lot more to it. Disruptions often stem from process failures, such as poorly managed handoffs between teams. We could just look at the CloudStrike issue just from a few months ago as a sort of spin-off of that. Unaligned procedures or insufficient training. And then we have organizational gaps. When we have a focus on IT, we tend to prioritize IT security, neglecting vulnerabilities in business operations. And we have disconnected business process management teams, where business process management teams are often siloed from operational risk and resilience teams, leading to misaligned priorities and not really working and collaborating together on this. So resilience is a business-led resilience done properly is a business-led cross-functional initiative that must connect business process management with the IT and the enterprise and operational risk functions. And it requires regular process reviews and alignment workshops that can bridge these gaps. So some of the challenges that organizations face, particularly financial services with DORA on the horizon here, on the immediate horizon, we face continuous service, process, product, system, and compliance updates. Static process frameworks can't adapt at the necessary speed. And we have first line of defense pressures, where business managers in the first line, I don't like using the word of defense. A lot of people still use it, but the Institute of Internal Auditors dropped the word defensive for a few years back. But business managers in that first line often lack resources to manage dynamic risks effectively. So some of my thoughts and recommendations on this is we need dynamic process management to shift from static documentation to real-time adaptive process tools and capabilities like ERIS that helps us keep current in the environment. We need automation and consider implementing AI-driven solutions for monitoring and managing process changes. Of course, there's still subject matter expert review and governance in this. So AI extends subject matter expertise, doesn't replace it. And in training, we need to equip that first line teams with tools and skills to manage evolving risks to the processes and services of the business itself.
Again, I can't find any fault in that. It's fully aligned with I think our thinking. There is, I think we need to look a little bit more at the oops, that's not the right one. A little bit more at this idea of this reductionist thinking. So if we can break up the resilience problem into an IT part, a third party aspect, a risk management aspect. There's a BCM aspect. There could be other process aspects. I think these silos is going to be one of the major, let's say, problems that our organization will need to solve in the years to come. So if I look at it from a helicopter view, there's a couple of key areas, and you mentioned them already, right? There's the IT and ICT security aspects. There's ORM. There's business operations. There's third party. Now, what I've seen, and at least in some of the firms that I've been working with, is that in order to cope with the continuous influx of change in the business operations, not only from concerns like risk or resilience, but also simply technology change, product change, that some firms in the first line have started to merge the roles of risk managers and quality managers. So they essentially have a 360-degree view of how are we operating within like claims, how are we operating in other areas of a bank or a financial institution. Now, this is not something I've seen everywhere, but what is your view on what the future of the first line will look like? So these hybrid roles of people that take a 360-degree perspective on everything that factors into the way of working, and it affects both performance or risk levels. Is that something that you see firms embracing?
Slowly. I mean, there's a lot of cultural change and things that need to happen there, but it's that first line that owns the business processes. Therefore, they own the risks to those processes, but I mean, sometimes that needs a lot more clarity. But then in that context, they own the resilience to those processes as well. And so we were undergoing sort of a seismic shift in some of that thinking that needs to be addressed and addressing and adapting the corporate culture to look at that.
Right. So the in your view, if you would, if it would be in your power, maybe it is in your power to shape that collaboration between IT, IT management, risk management, process and quality management, what would that look like? Do you have any inputs in terms of the different roles and responsibilities across those areas, and how they would collaborate on basically every day making sure that you run an effective but also resilient service for your customers?
I mean, it requires that collaboration and across these different areas, and that there are open lines of communication, which sometimes can require that we address some of the corporate politics that are negative in the organization, where people have their little fiefdoms and don't want to cooperate across them. But to be a truly resilient organization requires that there is this collaboration on resilience across these different departments and functions, from the first line, front office, to the back office as second and third lines on this.
And do you think that the other thing I notice is that where's the center of gravity for operational resilience across the organization? Sometimes it's more, it leans towards IT security, cybersecurity. Sometimes it's more leaning towards operation risk management. What is in your view, where should it be, and where is it typically in the firms that you work with?
I believe it's part of operational risk management. I've been saying for over 20 years, I don't understand why business continuity is buried in the bowels of IT in most organizations, and enterprise and operational risk enterprise risk and operational risk are the separate function. They never talk to each other. They belong better together. As I've stated a few times, while the U.S. doesn't have operational resilience regulation, unfortunately, the U.S. OCC makes it very clear that operational resilience is an effective outcome of operational risk management. They belong together. So I see resilience needs to be part of risk management, and not just part of IT risk management, because that's just, putting like the blinders on and a myopic view of what operational resilience is. And it's going to look at everything from an IT security lens then. And IT security is important. I'm not trying to downplay it, but true resilience is broader than just security.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. So people may have noticed that I'm bringing up some of the myths that you may have seen in the white paper on our website, and we're trying to debunk them. So welcome to this debunking of the 10 myths of operational resilience. Once again, for those of you who joined a little bit later. By the way, for all of the listeners, we are recording this, obviously, and the recording will be available later on. We'll share the details on where to find it, etc. And there are some associated documents with regards to operation resilience and our offerings in that area that you can download, that are available, I think, from the panel to your right, to the right of the screen. With that said, so just going a little bit further in terms of the way that operation resilience is. So some of the key concerns I would say that operation resilience leaders are currently thinking about. One is, how do we shape our capability for scenario testing? Now, there are all kinds of different ways of doing scenario testing. And one of them, for example, is tabletop experiments. This is what seems to occupy a lot of people a lot. And while I think that tabletop experiments are really good at identifying gaps in roles and responsibilities, I don't think that they're a really good way of assessing the quality of the ways of working of the processes, and especially also the rainy day processes, if I may call them like that. The ones that you would fire up as soon as something does go wrong and you need to find alternative ways of working. Plus, obviously, tabletop experiments are very expensive. You need to bring a lot of highly paid people into a room. You have to play out the scenarios. You can't do this every week. I mean, it would just, the cost would explode. So one of the ways I would say to improve your visibility of how well how resilient are we to particular disruptions is to simulate against the ways of working that you have, against the processes that you have. I know some organizations are working on this, not all of them. What are your views on this? Is this too innovative for the moment, or is this something that organizations should really prioritize?
Well, they should definitely prioritize that. I mean, tabletop exercising is not going to go away. We need it, and to me, it triggers some of that right brain things and thinking, okay, what if this happens and things, and so it engages that right brain on risk management. But so from my perspective, tabletop exercises are useful for testing roles and responsibilities, but often fail to assess the quality of underlying processes. But they are good at that right brain, out of the box thinking on that element. I also like micro simulations. But these exercises, tabletop exercises, that is, are often resource intensive and limited in scalability, as you mentioned. So going through more innovative approaches, such as simulated scenarios with continuous simulation of disruptions against real world processes using digital twins, I think that's very effective. And leveraging AI tools to analyze process effectiveness and identify potential bottlenecks, I think, can also be very critical. To me, again, I don't think tabletop exercises completely go away. I think they have their use, but there's other things that can be leveraged here. I mean, you go to the doctor, and the doctor might give you a physical exam, might do blood tests, might do a CAT scan, MRI, and all this. There's multiple tools for the doctor to look at things from different angles. The same thing here with operational resilience is we need to look at things from different angles. There's a value to tabletop exercises, but if that's all we're doing, I think we're hurting the organization. And we should start looking to some innovative approaches like simulated scenarios, digital twins, and AI tools to help address this. But also what's really needed with scenario testing is leadership responsibility. Operational resilience leaders need to drive process optimization while collaborating closely with business operation teams to execute changes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask that because ORM teams typically don't go deeply into the solutioning, the improvement of processes. That is left to typically to the business operations or IT operations experts. So again, I think I'm back on the silo topic here. It is one thing to identify a vulnerability or a process which may not be, which not may be optimal, but then just making that assessment and generating a task for someone else to then go improve it. I don't think that's enough. I think far more collaboration is needed there.
Yeah, and I like to touch on the silos too. And I think we mentioned this in the previous webinar I did this, but a lot of resilience to me reminds me of the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. And I call it the Risk and Resilience Mystery House. This is a sprawling mansion built in the 1800s. It cost 5.5 million US dollars to build then. That's one very expensive house today. It took 38 years to build, had 147 different builders. But had no design, no blueprint, no architect. At the end of the day, it's got doors that open to walls, 20-foot drops, staircases that go up or down to nowhere, halls that go to nowhere, skylights that are in floors instead of ceilings. It doesn't make sense because there's no design, no blueprint, no architect, and that's the problem. Is we have a lot of silos. When we look at operational resilience, over the last 38 years, we've had, 147 different builders of aspects of resilience, from IT security to compliance to enterprise and operational risk to enterprise architecture and business process modeling to business continuity and disaster recovery, and all doing their things. And when good operational resilience is going to require coordination, design to get all this to work. The current state is that operational resilience often remains fragmented across risk, IT, business continuity, disaster recovery, and process functions. This leads organizations, to figure out, how do we move beyond this to merge operational risk and quality management of processes, process quality and things to improve things and move around these isolated areas. The impact of silos means that there's coordination challenges where silos create inefficiencies, misaligned priorities, and blind spots in resilience planning, as well as missed opportunities. We have failed to integrate efforts, and enable synergies, such as leverage, and where we fail to see that we can leverage IT risk data to inform process improvements. So we need to really focus on effective collaboration to establish shared objectives across enterprise operational risk, IT, business process modeling and management teams, and the business continuity areas. We need to implement governance structures that encourage collaboration, such as joint steering committees or cross-functional working groups.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I think we have a long way to go. To be honest, I can see that some, in some of the customers that we have are really advanced in creating that collaboration and creating an agile cross-functional teams that look not only at resilience or other kind of risk, but they also look at performance. They also look at experience, and they make sure that all of this factors into optimized processes every day again. So it's a continuous agile way of continuously improving ways of working. But not everyone is doing this, and I think that we have some way to go to get everyone on the same page in that regard. I want to switch to another topic that, and I know that the people the people that are attending the webinar today, they know better. But I still wanted to discuss a little bit about, the wider industry that will be affected by operational resilience, starting with, let's say, something which is very close to the financial sector itself, which is all of these suppliers selling into the providing services into the financial sectors, like your core banking application vendors and what have you. So what I see right now, and obviously with Eris, we do sell into the financial sector, so we are part of that ecosystem that is now experiencing an increase of information security requirements. But a lot of critical suppliers will get a lot of heat from third-party management because the risk will stay with the FSI regardless of where a problem originates, which means that FSIs will have to and will want to have a far deeper look into the kitchen of their critical suppliers. So this, I know that this is not there's no like clear idea of how this will be shaped moving forward. I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation going on in the next year or more. What is your point of view? How will this develop?
I mean, no organization, particularly financial services organization, is an island. You know, the modern organization is the extended enterprise. Vendors, suppliers, outsourcers, service providers, contractors, consultants, brokers, agents, dealers, partners, intermediaries, and more. Their risk issues are your issues. Their resilience issues are your issues. In fact, we were talking about DORA right now, but UK operation resilience has been in effect for several years now. And last year, TSB Bank, they were fined in the United Kingdom, they're fined £40 million for a third-party resilience failure. But the CIO under UK SMCR, that's the Senior Managers Regime Certification Regime that has the senior management function for third-party risk and resilience, was the CIO, the senior management function. SMCR, you have to define 28 different senior management functions that are ultimately personally accountable. So the bank, TSB Bank, was fined £40 million for a third-party resilience failure. The senior management function, the CIO, was fined £80,000 that he had to pay out of his bank account, not the bank's bank account. That's accountability. But the modern organization is this extended enterprise, and this is going to require deeper vendor engagement. Financial services institutions are demanding, as you stated, greater transparency and collaboration from critical IT vendors, or what DORA says, ICT, information communication technology vendors. Examples include co-designing processes and services and implementing shared monitoring frameworks. Some emerging trends is that, financial services and regulators are collaborating to build common third-party resilience frameworks. And DORA's got its own third-party oversight provisions. Vendors will likely develop standardized frameworks to address diverse client needs efficiently across their clients that they serve in the same industry. But the other aspect of this, I've got something else to talk about, about operational resilience being beyond financial services, but I won't go into that now as we're focused on the third party element. I'll just wait to get your thoughts back on the third party piece.
Yeah, so one of the things that I would expect to happen in the market over the next months and years is for more common frameworks to be developed. It's something that we typically see. I would expect that this would happen on a country level first. So banks basically coming together, maybe together with financial authorities to come up with like a common framework of how do we engage with our third parties and how do we set up an auditing framework to identify how we are doing, how do we measure the effectiveness of what we're putting in place. Have you seen any sort of formal initiatives in any of the countries that you're supporting?
Not specifically. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay, so that is something yet to be done, I would say. All right, so as you rightfully say, we have to look beyond financial services, right? So what are your ideas on the wider industry that is affected by operational resilience concerns, but also maybe potentially legislation?
Well, I will say that I am getting interest in operational resilience across industries. And so it's regulated in financial services. You've got the EU DORA, you've got UK operational resilience, you've got Australia CPS 230. You have guidance, not regulation in the US. You've got guidance from Basel and the Bank for National Settlements. But as I mentioned, I'm talking to this global hospitality firm, and they're really focused on bringing risk and resilience together. I talked to a big tire manufacturer that's very focused on moving business continuity into operational resilience as part of operational risk management. Uh, After the last several years, from COVID-19 and supply chain disruptions and economic uncertainty and global conflicts and disruptions and so much, organizations across industries want to be resilient. Regulation provides some structure and deadlines and dates to it. But the organizations that aren't regulated, the mini industries that aren't regulated, still are extremely, extremely interested in resilience right now. And they're going to continue this. And it's going to help mature risk and resilience and bringing these together across industries, not just within the regulated ones.
So you think that the mechanisms and the practices that are currently being developed in the financial sector on the obviously the pressure of PS 21.3, CPS 32, DORA, etc., are going to carry over into other industries, or do you think that that operational resilience will look to an extent different in manufacturing or in energy or in logistics than it does in financial services?
I think there's a lot of similarity that can be leveraged from the financial services regulations, but in manufacturing in different areas, there's going to be some different emphasis, such as supply chains and parts and things like that aren't necessarily part of the same thing with financial services and outsourcers and service providers that they're looking at. And so there's sometimes more global logistic concerns and supply chain pieces in some industries like manufacturing or life sciences and pharma and things like that, that are a concern that you don't necessarily have within financial services. So some of the risks play out differently operationally, but the overall structure and program, I think, can be very similar.
Interesting. All right, so maybe one last topic before we open up the discussion basically to the rest of the audience as well. This is an interesting one because I'm on the fence with regards to this. I think there's lots of lots of aspects to this. So AI and digital transformation. Would they help? Could they potentially help us to reduce the need for resilience? How do AI and digital transformation affect resilience positively or negatively?
Gosh, that's a tough one because to me, I mean, AI itself needs to be tested and we need resilience on AI. But what if AI fails? So what if it gives us bad information or bad decisions? And so there needs to be resilience plans around AI itself. AI is a double-edged sword. With artificial intelligence, we can enhance predictive capabilities and operational efficiency, but it also introduces new risks, such as cyber threats, where AI models are susceptible to adversarial attacks. And there's complex dependencies. Over reliance on AI and digital systems can amplify disruption impacts. And so AI is a tool to improve operational resilience, but to me, it doesn't reduce the need for it. It's a tool to help it. Resilience is the priority. We need to increase with increasing complexity of the digital ecosystems, makes resilience more critical than ever. And with the dependence on AI, there needs to be resilience testing there as well. Organizations, in my mind, need to balance the benefits of AI and digital transformation with robust risk management and governance frameworks that can govern it properly.
Yeah. So the way I look at it, it's ultimately it's a digital transformation over the last 30 years that has brought us to this place. And digitalization has made globalization possible, which is fantastic. But on the other hand, it now exposes a lot of businesses to global supply chain risks. Digitalization has allowed us to create completely new types of services, but it comes with digital risks. So essentially, digitalization has massively changed the way that we do business over the years, and that's the positive effect of digitalization. But it has a flip side. So I think resilience is now essentially the focus on resilience is in a way a response to addressing the flip side, the negative aspects of digitalization. But as you said, um, natural disasters are just as much a disruption that needs to be that organization will need to cope with. That has nothing to do with digitalization. It's just a fact of life that a storm can take out the communications. It can take out the communications infrastructure, and that's just as much.
And all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So we had that boat stuck in the Suez Canal. You remember a couple of years ago? That has absolutely nothing to do with. Well, there could be a digitalization problem somewhere, but in general, that's not a digitalization problem. It's not an AI problem. It's just a boat getting stuck in the Suez, disrupting logistics from Asia into Europe, with all kinds of consequences. And a good business will make sure that they have alternative supply lines that they can fire up quickly in order to make sure that they continue doing business. So yeah, I think. We've discussed several myths around Operation Resilience. I'm not entirely sure if we had any questions in the chat so far. Let me see if we have anything. Not so much. So we're probably being extremely clear for everyone, which is a good sign.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Is there anything that we should have discussed that we missed, Michael?
No, not specifically, but some closing thoughts on my part is to emphasize that Operation Resilience is not a one-time effort, and it's not a purely technical exercise. It requires ongoing cross-functional collaboration. It needs to be aligned and supported and governed by operational risk management. It should leverage advanced tools and a forward-looking strategy. Organizations need to address the silos we talked about. They need to improve process visibility and leverage innovative testing methods and methodologies and analysis. Organizations can build resilience that goes beyond compliance to deliver strategic, competitive business advantage to the organization if they do this correctly.
Well, I can do nothing else but agree to that. Michael, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. Sharing some of your ideas on resilience and risk. It was a great pleasure again. And to the audience, thank you for attending. I think that there are some links that you can follow for more information in terms of what we do with ARIS in the area of Operation Resilience, how we can support you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you have any questions for me or for Michael, after this session, don't hesitate to post them to us, and we'll come back to you. Thank you so much, everyone, and see you in the next webinar.